Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Boujee Astrology, and we are going to do a deep dive meditative rant on Mercury retrograde, particularly the Mercury retrograde that is going to be starting late on July 17th, early on July 18th. It really kind of depends on your time zone, but we're just days away at the point right now when I'm recording it. We're just days away from this Mercury retrograde starting. Now, one of the things I'm going to do, this kind of came to me in meditation. I had an original goal that after I did my whole like BOGO for my birthday thing, that I was not going to do another special until we got to eclipse season. But I was meditating on this yesterday and I was like, no, let's go ahead and do another one. But we're only going to do it for the rest of July. I'm not going to run this all the way through August. Eclipse season is basically all of September. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a flash sale for the next 2 weeks until the end of the month. And you can do hour-long sessions for $35, or the 90-minute sessions will get reduced to $50. So that's going to be available on the website. I haven't put it up there quite yet at the time that I'm recording this, but by the time that you guys are hearing it, you will be able to go to the website and see that my sessions have been reduced. $35 for an hour, $50 for 90 minutes. Only until the end of July. August 1st, the prices go back up. So there you go. Little flash sale to go alongside with Mercury's retrograde and all his drama. Because it feels kind of like drama, but it feels so much like petty drama. I cannot express how much I giggle the closer we are getting to this Mercury retrograde. So for me personally, Mercury in Leo is my 10th house of career and goals and public image. And like there's like this giggle that I get every time when I start thinking of like there's so much things that are about to come to light and are about to get exposed. Now, for some people, the exposure is going to be good. For other people, that exposure is going to speak volumes in the revealing. And I've said this in previous episodes. I hope you got your shit together. I hope you know if you are in alignment or not. Because this particular Mercury retrograde, it is strategic, it is volatile. It's going to bring certain things to the forefront that's going to really challenge certain people in positions of power, especially those people that are starting to really have need to be challenged, because there's been too much mistruths, lies, frustration. And the amount of information that I feel like is going to come to light, and it really just kind of goes to Mercury and the elements of Mercury. Mercury rules basic information. Mercury rules travel. Mercury rules communication. It is the ruler of our logical brain. Whether it is written communication, texted communication, spoken communication, the words coming out of people's mouths, doesn't matter. This is all mercurial stuff. But Mercury being retrograde in the sign of Leo, in the sign of the sun, means we're going to have a revamping, a reshaping, a restructuring, a reorganizing, a re-strategizing, a repurposing for many in very, very public ways. There will be a large amount of exposures. And again, you don't want things coming out for the wrong reasons, because the long-term effect of a retrograde in a fixed sign will again speak volumes. So there's a lot to this retrograde. And whenever we go through the dates, this retrograde also is the thing that puts us into place for the new things that we start in eclipse season. There's a direct connection. Right as Mercury leaves shadow, and if we go all the way through the dates, which I will here in a little bit, I'll be able to show you exactly what that is. And we'll talk more about it in the closing. But the big thing people need to take from this Mercury retrograde is the amount of things that are going to come to light that go into the restructuring, the re-strategizing, the repurposing, the revamping, whatever it is, because it's always a It's a redo of some sort. Whatever that is leads to something very big starting in eclipse season, because one half of the eclipse axis, babies, is in Mercury's sign. The South Node is in Virgo. Back in June 8th in specific, there was a conjunction between Mercury and Jupiter. And I said it back then. This date starts a ripple effect of things all through June, of things that we need to commit to. We need to face. We need to see differently. We need to understand, whether that has been synchronistic patterns of the same thing being spoken by different people into the world. You should do this. Have you ever thought of this? What if we try doing this? You could try this other thing. See how high we can climb. There's a restructuring, a need to replan, a need to revise, a need to redo. There's been a huge shift all through the month of June. And once we got into July, certain planets have started to go retrograde. Now, I have said for quite a while that these outer planets in the new signs doing this pinky toe dip into the water. Is it ready yet? Oh no, it's still kind of cold. I'm going to go back to the bar. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to plunge in quite yet. Saturn and Neptune are the first two of those outer planets that I'm referring to. They have now turned retrograde. And the new things that have been brought to the surface since late May, based off Saturn, late March, based off Neptune, we're going to be revising, revamping even parts of those, because we need to either enact something, and that goes into the re-strategizing and the repurposing, or it is going to be because of what was discovered during that time is going to be a part of the exposure. Whether it's good or bad, it's a different conversation. But there is a shift in a lot of the environment that is going to come through in this Mercury retrograde. Now, through late May and all of June, Saturn, the ruler of time, the ruler of law, the ruler of karma, amongst 1,000 other things that he rules, being a little dramatic, it's been in the same area of the sky. It's been between 0 and 1 degrees of Aries. Throughout the entirety of this retrograde, he will be going backwards. He is also retrograde, going back over areas of the sky where he's already been once before. And it is him going back over those things that tells me the things that we started through the month of June were very, very important for what we are going to be dealing with now, the next round of something now, the next level of something now, seeing what sticks and what doesn't. Some things will stick, other things will not. That does not mean we made a mistake. We learn through trial and error. And a lot of us throughout the month of June was putting our best foot forward into brand new territory. We weren't meant to see everything because everything was new. All of that energy was new. But by doing the new things, we've also ruffled feathers. Where before, in the old vibration and the old energy, two people were vibing, working well together, doing okay, maybe a little bits of hit and miss, maybe a little bit of frustration every once in a while. But then it's like once Saturn went into Aries, it just changed that dynamic and that changed that vibration, and little irritations that weren't irritations before suddenly boiled up to the surface and found their way into manifestation. And over the course of the last 45 days, going into this retrograde, there's been removal of support. I don't believe this anymore. I don't trust this anymore. I don't trust them anymore. I don't want this anymore. I don't like the way that I feel. I feel like something else is necessary. And if there has been the separation, that removal of support, Then now the Mercury retrograde is putting forth the need to react in re-strategizing, repurposing, redoing, revamping. It is a reaction to bring new things to light, to bring new things to the surface, to showcase new efforts, new ideas, new purpose, new ways of doing things. And once we put new things into order, allowing for the natural manifestation and unfolding to happen more gently once we go into eclipse season. We have to make space first. Many people we have had to make space. And whether it was through Neptune turning retrograde, Saturn turning retrograde, or now this Mercury, the space was necessary. It is necessary. But right alongside with these two planets going retrograde, Saturn and Neptune, by the way, another planet has changed signs. And he's changed the dynamic for how our minds are going to behave in this Mercury retrograde. And that would be Uranus. Uranus has entered Gemini. He entered on July the 7th. He will also be doing his pinky toe dip into this water. And he will remain there until November the 7th. And then he will go back into Taurus and go settle out whatever unfinished business he has in that other area of life, in that other area of the sky. And by 2026, he, along with Saturn and Neptune, will completely submerge himself into Gemini, into the new sign. And it is the energy behind Uranus and Saturn and Neptune why I keep saying we get glimpses of what our new normal is going to be. We start making decisions in what our new normal is going to be, but we will not be completely cemented into what that is going to feel like until 2026. They are the reasons why, the biggest of the reasons, just to be clear. They're the biggest reasons. Now, when it comes to the vibration of Uranus in Gemini, it is going to create an amplification of expect the unexpected. Let me say that again. Expect the unexpected in this Mercury retrograde. Nothing is off limits. And if it can be exposed, especially through ways of technology, it's going to be. Expect the unexpected. Uranus is an amplifier of Mercury. Mercury does very, very well in Aquarius. Uranus is the cyborg version of Mercury in some ways. And rationale doesn't necessarily compute to computers. Logic says this is what's the right way to do it. Fuck everything else. Kind of. And we're just going to do this. There's no emotions. I'm like, oh, that's just extra. No, this is the right way to do things. And the snap in his energy is going to be huge. And our opinions of certain things, the things that we think that we know about certain people, the things that we know about people in positions of power, it is going to change in this Mercury retrograde. And I think that's a big part of why I just kind of giggle in this energy, because I'm like, I feel like so many people with the expect the unexpected energy of Uranus, that the derailing is going to be huge. And I think my giggle is out of curiosity as to like, where is that going to land in the human manifestation? Uranus is in Mercury's sign. And he, along with other planets also in Mercury's sign, is adding extra layers and elements to the ideas of what the exposure can be. So Uranus is in Gemini, but also so is Venus. And anytime I see Venus kind of at the back of the line of the core planets, She's usually bringing results. She's usually bringing solutions. She's bringing extra depth. And she is also going over areas of the sky where we made decisions back in June. So our results will come through based off of Venus, good, bad, or ugly. Take that as you will. Virgo is also ruled by Mercury. And in the sign of Virgo, we have Mars, the god of war, with his machete, chopping down things, clearing a path for new. And one of the ways that we are going to start this Mercury retrograde is going to be Mars making a conjunction to the South Node. And if you haven't made the decision to walk away, to clear something out, to separate in some way before Mercury turns retrograde, the amplification feeling of like, I need to make this decision right now, I need to say the words that are going to hurt right now, are really going to be heightened in that first week following the retrograde, especially when Mars makes its conjunction to the South Node. And that is the most exact on July 20th, but really we're going to be feeling it the 18th, the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, 22nd. And those first few days of the Mercury retrograde feel very, very compressed and connected and tightened. And I expect harsh words. I expect harsh energy. I expect a lot of things getting disrupted very, very quickly. But I feel bad for people that work in high levels of data, but that can be in schools, that can be in universities, that can be in hospitals. Like, I'm thinking institutions in a lot of ways. I also question things around prisons. Obviously, I'm going to question things around the government, all levels of high levels of institution, because the kind of cut off, and especially people that are of service and work in some level of service, I think is going to be very, very big also in that first part of the Mercury retrograde. But the other thing about Virgo is it's not just about of service. It is also a very big element that speaks to health. Because one of the ways people are of service is the way they take care of other people in their needs of health. And now I want to kind of focus on the health right now. And I really do feel like with so many planets in Mercury's sign while he goes retrograde, the health vibration is going to be a free-for-all. And it's either going to be a series of hidden issues coming to the surface. And I've actually already seen this in a multitude of ways already, like in the pre-shadow phase. And whatever has come to the surface in the pre-shadow phase means like the revising, revamping, restructuring is going to be like what we need to do to react or respond specifically to that health issue. But for other people, you're going to have your actual health issues in the Mercury retrograde. Now I want to focus on that Virgo side for just a moment. The South Node is known to be the body of the dragon, the body that was removed, disgraced, outgrown, not needed, bye-bye, see ya, don't want that anymore. The South Node is the body. Mars rules the head. As much as the North Node can be the head of the dragon, Mars actually rules your crown area right here. That's actually not your crown chakra, but your skull, like your head. This area, it rules your skin. He rules your blood. You get a scrape, that's a Mars ruled thing. You get a cut, that's a Mars ruled thing. You fall and break your ankle, that's a Mars ruled thing. And again, the way that we start this Mercury retrograde, Mars is going to be making a conjunction to the South Node. That means there's going to be a lot of things that disrupts the body of certain people. And if we haven't had issues up until now, or we've been kind of riding a line and skating a line of like, oh, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Oh, if I just take this extra medication, if I do this one extra thing, if I do this cleanse, if I do this, that maybe I can. get rid of the funk and nothing will happen. It'll be okay. For some, it will. And it will show you the efforts that you need to continue to do to manage and overcome any type of frustration in whatever area is being amplified. And I'm going to go a little bit more into the areas here in a minute, but I'm just saying it that way for now. For some people, it would be a cognitive effort to be able to overcorrect, to do corrective action. That's the way I really need to say that. For other people, again, it's going to be hidden issues coming to the surface, but it's like a chain reaction of issues that because this is wrong, it also means this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Now, as much as that can be our health, it can be other things in our life too, because one thing was not done correctly. We didn't understand something before. All these other little things go wrong and we have to take corrective action. Right now, we're still focused on the health, but that theme can be very widespread. Now, Mars again rules your head from like the top, your eyebrows basically up, your skin, sexual organs, especially male sexual organs, your blood, scrapes, bruises, cuts, accidents, fires, burns, anything that is a disruptive part, we can associate that with Mars. Again, the South Node is in the body of the dragon. So anything tied to the body. Mercury rules your intestinal health. He rules anything on your body in duality: 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 kidneys, 2 lungs. But the funny thing is about kidneys and lungs is there's 2 rulers. Mercury is a co-ruler. The lungs and kidneys are primarily ruled by Venus, and Venus is also in the Mercury ruled sign. Venus is in Gemini. Speaking of duality and speaking of legs, Uranus being the modern ruler of Aquarius. Aquarius is associated with the knees to lower legs. So your legs. Putting the health impact of what all planets rule, especially the planets that are in Mercury signs, health situations, health needs, going to be in a free-for-all. There's going to be a lot of things that can go up, down, side to side, and I can't put one particular focus on one area. And this is why I'm saying from the beginning, health needs, health issues that might arise is going to feel like a free-for-all. Yay? Yay? I don't like it. When Mercury and Neptune started, not Mercury, when Saturn and Neptune started to turn retrograde in my 6th house of health, because that's where they're at with in Aries, the first thing that kept coming to me is like, you need to do cleanses. You need to do cleanses. And I did. And so I'm part of that vibration. And again, the hope is that by doing a cleanse, it's going to allow for other things to work out a little bit better. But I also got to say, like, I feel a lot better now that I've been doing it. And it's come through in a multitude of ways. But I've also seen other people that have had unexpected things pop up in their health that they are also trying to react and respond. So I've seen this already manifesting. I'm letting you know if you've been dealing with this in some way, it would not surprise me. And it doesn't always have to be your health for that to be the manifestation. So again, South Node, body of the dragon, Mars, head, blood, cuts, abrasions, sexual organs. You can also have issues with sexual desires or shifts in sexual desires. But if it's a shift, it's probably like a temporary shift. So it's like temporarily you have an interest in something or someone that you would normally have an interest in. That could be pretty much a lighter way to deal with things. Venus rules the lungs, the kidneys, but also any ways that we take in taste. So smells, your mouth, your thyroid, your throat, all the way down. So all of this area, if we're having inflammation in the lungs, if we're having, extra irritation in our allergies, like our throat's extra scratchy, that wouldn't be a surprise. There can also be additional things towards taste, but now I'm saying taste. With Mars, I said like a temporary shift in desire. With Venus, I'm going to say like a temporary shift in taste. And that can be positive and negative. That can be shifts in taste of, you know, the TV shows that we're watching and the food that we're eating. I really do mean taste. Music, discovering a different music artist and kind of like really shifting into that vibration for a few weeks. We all go through that little moment of, you know, like this one artist like suddenly took over the summer and like this is the one that I want to listen to. But then whenever we get later in this year, like, oh, yeah, I forgot I went through that phase. Like I wasn't even thinking about it no more. So that can be more positive things. But there can also be the issues around, again, your thyroid. It might not be taste related, but you might have inflammation in something tied to your thyroid and you don't feel like certain things are functioning the way that they should. Uranus, again, we have those things towards technology and electrical. Expect the unexpected. I'm going to keep saying that. Expect the unexpected. I have a personal vibration around Uranus that I want to go over here in just a second, but let's wrap up this health part and then I'll kind of go into that. Uranus being that modern ruler again of Aquarius, your knees, lower legs, busting a shin. We don't want to do that. Blowing out a knee. I've seen that happen already since the arrival of Uranus into Gemini. And having to do different things around trying to like literally just focusing on the structure of this. Now, considering Saturn is also the co-ruler of Aquarius and he is now retrograde, he's not in Mercury's signs, but he is in Mars's sign and Mars is in Mercury's sign. Layer to get there, but we still run into this vibration of like something is going to be shifting in certain areas. And I would also expect shifts in regards to elders if they haven't already shown through. I feel like, though, closer to that full moon in Capricorn and Saturn turning retrograde, so that would have been July 10th and 12th, is when we would have really seen that more heightened. And I feel like now we're in more of the response part of the vibration, but you'll be able to see kind of how that's going to flow for yourself and other people around you. Okay. Now let's go to Uranus for just a minute before we go into dates. Uranus is adding an extra vibration. And whenever it comes historically for the United States, anytime Uranus goes into Gemini, at some point during his cycle, it's not just his entry and it's not his exit, it's some point in the cycle, we do go to war. So the people that keep getting terrified or frightened that there might be something towards riots or civil war, like I've already loosely warned in the past few months that, you know, we have these little things that are going to be spiking us into this vibration. Uranus's entry into Gemini can bring the sudden erratic shifts in opinion that lead to such of an issue. Historically speaking, anytime Uranus has been in Gemini, we have had a war here in America. The Revolutionary War, where we actually broke away from England, Uranus was in Gemini. If you look up the Sibley chart for the United States, you will see the natal Uranus in Gemini. And it's also Mars and Uranus in Gemini. We don't have that right now. So I'm not jumping to the conclusion of like, we're going to have a war. I'm kind of trying to put some more hope around Venus that she can do some positive things there, but I'm being realistic about his vibration. The Revolutionary War, the Confederate War, and World War II. Now, we did not participate in World War I the way that we did in World War II. World War I, America was more focused on making money, because they were the ones that was able to ramp up production and send out, you know, arms and artillery and ammo. And there was a lot of money getting made in World War I for America. So whenever I'm focused now on talking about the world wars, I am specifically talking about World War II because that's whenever Uranus was in Gemini. So we are 3 for 3 since America became America. And now we're at the start of this wonderful cycle for the next 7.5 to 8 years. I'm doing it that way because he's going to retrograde back into Taurus and all that. So that's fun. Slightly sarcastic. But for the people that keep getting concerned as to like whether we're on the verge of a war or not, we are. Statistically speaking, again, we are 3 for 3. We're at the start of round 4 of this particular transit, and it's going to last for the next 7.5 years. At some point, it's very likely that something is going to be inevitable. I'm not going to directly say that it's going to be this Mercury retrograde, but there is something very interesting about this Mercury retrograde that is going to bring a very sudden, unexpected shift in opinion based off of Uranus being in Mercury's sign. And I feel like he will amplify the results, the impact, the frustration, the strategizing, the redoing, the repurposing, the revising, the re that we do in retrogrades, and add an extra level to the impact. And again, this Mercury retrograde directly leads to eclipse season. And as we go through the dates, I will really connect that a lot better for everybody. But we're in a very curious vibration. I really attest a lot of my curiosity and like my giggle as I keep watching Uranus. Like, we haven't seen the full elements of what he's going to do yet. He just started. He's only been here about a week at the time that I'm recording this, because I'm recording this on July 15th. But it is coming where we're going to see his additional elements of excitement, of expect the unexpected, of breaking down certain barriers and certain molds, and really shifting huge amounts of opinion and communication in ways that we haven't seen yet. So I'm hopeful for this Mercury retrograde. Okay. Now let's focus on dates for just a minute. There is not as many transits per se compared to previous Mercury retrograde videos that I have done. And I'm saying that because I actually got all of the dates, pre-shadow, actual retrograde, and post-shadow on one piece of paper. Because y'all know I write this out by hand. It is what it is. I got all of the transits on one piece of paper, and I don't normally get the chance to do that. In fact, usually it's about 2 pages worth of stuff, but I got all of them on one. So there's hope in that. 2, the pre-shadow phase wasn't heavy in major transits, but it did start those retrogrades, and it did have that arrival of Uranus into Gemini. So I'm going to give a couple of the pre-shadow dates just so people are aware. I've said this in the weekly response, in the weekly podcast of like, hey, Mercury's now in shadow. So some of the things that we are doing now, after all the feeding of June to this point, because we needed all those new decisions of June to get us to what we're going to change in the Mercury retrograde. And this is why I feel like a big portion of this Mercury retrograde can be used strategically and purposefully in a multitude of ways. It really comes down to your own personal alignment. I have a hope for this one. Oh, Mercury entered shadow on June 30th. The Venus-Uranus conjunction was between July 3rd and July 4th. Venus went into Gemini on July 4th, and at the same time, Neptune turned retrograde. 3 days later, on July 7th, Uranus went into Gemini. The full moon in Capricorn was on July 10th, and Saturn turned retrograde on July 12th. These are the handful of dates of the pre-shadow vibration that shows us so many things were supposed to come into place. And that more goes into June. June was very important of moving things into place because we made a lot of decisions and commitments to adapt and change and shift something through the month of June, that now we are either going to be pushing something forward, again, purposely in this Mercury retrograde, or We're going to have a lot of things from before come back and bite us and make us rethink what we have committed to, depending on your own personal level of alignment. Keep saying it that way. Now, for the rest of the dates, I'm going to show the screen. And I'm going to put more focus on a lot of the areas that are just major transits. This is not going to be like an hourly thing. It's not going to be like what I do in the weekly podcast. This is more going to be like the month ahead, where I just jump from major transit to major transit. And this is going to take us all the way until August, when Mercury leaves shadow. And there's a big asterisk around Mercury leaving shadow. So be aware of that. Beware. And now we're going to get into the dates. So on July 17th at 11:46 p.m. Central Standard Time is when Mercury is going to go retrograde. For some of the population, it is going to be late Thursday evening on July 17th. For the rest of the population, it is going to be in the early morning hours of July 18th. The best way I can describe this for a lot of people is the morning of July 18th. Things are going to feel different because Mercury will be retrograde. Now, there are no major direct transits per se in that immediate vibration. We do have Chiron hitting a square to the sun. That's going to be more exact on July 19th. I've got this on July 20th, but you can see it right here. Here's Chiron, 27 degrees, 6 minutes. Here's the sun, 27:46. So we're well past it. And there is an energy that speaks to like impressing a wound. Either some of us are creating a new one or we are expressing a wound that has been had. And there is something about wounds, pains, and hurting. What I think is interesting about Chiron in this vibration, hitting the square to the sun, is Chiron is in Mars' sign. And over the course of the 20th and the 21st, Mars and the South Node are going to hit their actual conjunction. It is more exact late on the 20th. So I've got this at 12:30 a.m. Like it's in the midnight hour. But you can see the Mars South Node vibration building, coming together. And there can be just like something being said at the very beginning of the Mercury retrograde, something being said, something being expressed, something that is occurring that for a lot of people feels like it is the creation of a new wound, or it is bringing new awareness to an old wound. But there is something more spoken about a wound that is coming to light, that is coming into focus. And it can be a new wound, especially with Mars and the South Node hitting their conjunction. Now, this is going to be more exact, like I said, later in the day. So this is another one of those days that I say, really expect that unexpected. I've got it now at 2:30 p.m. You can see they're a lot closer right here. And as we continue, we're going to feel the need for something that needs to come to a close for a few days, something that needs to come to an end, something that needs to be cut off. And it's more likely to be in that heightened vibration between the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd. Now, for some people, by cutting something off, it is allowing for something new to slide into place, something new to arrive, something new to be seen. And on the 22nd, the sun is going to come into Leo. And as soon as the sun comes into Leo, it's going to start a sextile from Uranus. So you can see this right here. Uranus at 0 degrees, 37 minutes. Here's the sun, 0 degrees, 14 minutes. But when the sun enters Leo, it immediately goes into a sextile from Uranus. So it's like the change of opinion, the change of conversation has led to a new awareness, led to a new focus, led to a new way of doing things and thinking. Now, why am I saying just a new way of doing things? Because we've got a couple things going on all simultaneously following the sun going into Leo. So we're going to bump this ahead. On the 23rd, we're going to get the exact square. It's late on the 22nd going into the 23rd between Venus and Mars. This is a real interesting energy because it's like based off of everything that we put forth into the summer, the things that we were doing in June. Some people may more of June. It's now impressing an action, impressing a desire, impressing ideas, impressing a focus. Venus hitting that square to Mars. The impression is to push a desire. The solution is to force an action. And Venus is either the impression is in the higher authority, so she's the one giving the impression. Mars's way of dealing with things is how he's putting forth the effort moving forward. So there is a vibration that speaks to solution in some ways, the arrival of new information. If some people are impressing a solution, it is because the solution is needed in the reaction, in the response of the Mercury retrograde. And we are still at the very beginning of the Mercury retrograde. In addition to this, on the 24th, the sun will go through its trine from Saturn, trine from Neptune, and it will also include a new moon. You can see that right here, new moon in Leo, opposite Pluto. There is going to be the need to impress something new, to deal with the frustration, to deal with the power struggle, to deal with the symptoms, to deal with something tied to elders, because somebody is no longer responsible. Somebody no longer wants to perform effort. And because there is no additional effort being made, it is forcing again something new to come through that we were not anticipating. It is more of a reaction than a response. I would prefer us to be able to respond. But again, we need to go into this retrograde expecting the unexpected. And this is a new moon. This is a very powerful new moon that is intersecting a lot of other areas of the sky, a lot of other players, a lot of other frustrations, tensions, and emotions. Be aware of that. Be aware of knowing that we've reached certain limits with other people, and because those limits have been reached, something else needs to come through. Something else needs to be put into play as a response. Okay. It's more of a reaction, but anyways, the heightened energy between, again, July 19th to that July 23rd, 24th timeframe, these all really do feel connected. So I want people to be aware of, like, whenever you wake up on July 18th, that vibration that kind of comes through, that information, the download, the epiphany of where we need to change something or where something doesn't sit right. Be real clued into that, because it can be a direct effect from the new energy that we have done in recent weeks. And it could be something that we need to change. And again, we could be changing it strategically, like, oh, we did something wrong, we got to go back. We didn't have this anticipated reaction. We've got to look at it differently. We've got to try something new. We got to try something different. And trial and error does not have to be a bad thing. Some people will have new information come to light that again adds additional layers of, like, not trusting, given that those few days we also get that new moon in that trine to Neptune and Saturn, who are newly retrograde, and that opposition to Pluto, who's been retrograde for a while. We're kind of in his midway point of conquering fear and power struggle. There can be something new that has been recently brought to light that changes the long-term impact of how we see something or see a plan or see an emotion or desire to do something. And that can have positive and negative inclinations just in that first week. So the amount of things that I anticipate will come to light in that first round of vibration speaks to more adaptation and change. The week before the retrograde felt like restless, anxious, sleepless energy, where that first week after the retrograde starts feels like we have a lot more things going into motion, going into place. And yes, it is a Mercury retrograde. Yes, it does have temporary energy. But again, this Mercury retrograde sets us up for eclipse season, and that will make more sense at the end of the date. Okay, moving along, moving along. All right. So our next transit is not going to occur into the 28th. And this isn't nearly as heavy, but it also feels like something that speaks again towards the solution, certain meetings, certain things being impressed. Chiron is going to hit a sextile to Venus. And just looking at this date and knowing that this is also going to be like a Moon Mars conjunction, there can be still areas of tension. There still can be areas of frustration, but there can also be areas where we start to impress actions around the solutions or we give charge in the solutions. I feel like Venus gives us some solutions, and Chiron hitting the sextile to Venus, this doesn't feel heavy, but it does feel like we have some kind of connection being made that speaks to where we're going to allow for an action to take place, to adapt something, to change something, to meet people in a different way, in a different light. And with the moon's conjunction to Mars in this vibration, that kind of add extra layers to it. So the 28th, we have Chiron hitting that sextile to Venus. Chiron is in the higher authority. It is in Mars's sign. The actions towards healing something, towards fixing something, towards creating a solution, and Venus feeling like she's trying to amplify the results of past situations, that the solution has layers and it can work. It's just going to take getting everybody on board. And that kind of feels like the vibration of what we deal with through the next few days, from the 28th to the 30th and the 31st. And there's going to be something that needs to come to light in these few days. So Chiron hits the sextile to Venus on the 28th. On the 30th, Venus is going to enter Cancer. Now, I was meditating on this and I thought this was really interesting. So I want to get this to the right part so I can show you the full aspect. Okay, so this is July 30th, roughly around 11:30 p.m. I think she entered closer to 11 p.m. I didn't actually write her exact time. I just wrote like ish, 11-ish, so I apologize. But Venus enters Cancer. But while Venus is in Cancer, the moon is in Libra. And the arrival of Venus going into this sign where she feels exuded and empowered, and she's now co-present with Jupiter and getting closer to something coming together and being met. She's also in a house swap. She's in mutual reception. The moon is in Venus' sign. Venus is in the moon sign. And there feels like, again, something from the 28th to the 31st, these few days that like it impresses a solution. A lot of our solutions right now are more of a reaction versus being able to just respond. There's a lot of snappiness to it. But the arrival of new information is what's going to be the idea of what we put, of how we put something back into order. Because what I'm looking at is the moon is also in Libra, which is about balance and law and scales and this vibration that speaks to fairness. And a lot of people can be struggling with whether things are being fair or not. And some of the immediate solutions that can come through between the 28th and the 31st can feel like an attempt to be more fair. But there needs to be something that gets accepted, something that needed to come to a close between the 28th and the 29th, while allowing for something new to arrive. Venus's entry into Cancer changes the dynamic of the Mercury retrograde, because now Venus is no longer in Mercury's sign. So it's like we hit a solution in one way, we got certain things, we saw results of certain things, and now we're able to see what else we can do with it upon Venus's entry into Cancer. And immediately following this, we go into our Mercury cazimi. That is going to take place on the actual 31st. So we're past it right here. It was a little bit earlier in the evening time. So let's see. Get you a little closer. There we go. 6:30 p.m. Here's the sun. Here's Mercury. Mercury coming into the heart of the sun right after Venus left Mercury's sign. So for a lot of people, the solution is going to be somebody needs to leave. Somebody needs to walk away. Somebody needs to do something for the last time and go focus elsewhere, go do something else, go start something different. And that speaks their Venus leaving Gemini and going into Cancer. And some people can still be hurt by that arrival, by that enlightenment, by those things coming to light, by that truth. If you've been trying to work on something in a relationship and somebody's finally coming back around going, you know what? It's not working for me. I know we've been doing therapy for the last 9 to 10 months every single week, and you've been trying your best, but bottom line is I'm still not happy. You have to recognize that level of truth that we don't want to recognize. And the thing about Mercury being retrograde and going backwards in the sky is the things that we don't normally come out to the surface with, the things that we don't normally want to speak into flourishing, we are more likely to speak them. And because of how many planets have been in Mercury's sign, it's going to amplify the layers of information that is going to come out. But I feel like as we get to this end part of the month, we get to a point of how we fix something, the solution of something requires somebody leaving, requires something changing, or if it's the more positive element of Venus going into Cancer and not necessarily leaving Gemini, it's because the arrival of someone new can give a better in-depth analysis as to where we need to turn something around. So we're at the midway point of the Mercury retrograde in this Mercury cazimi. We also have the arrival of Venus in this oozy, fun vibration of Cancer because Venus likes being in Cancer. I put an asterisk next to that. In the past, if we've had people with lung issues or kidney function issues, once Venus goes into Cancer, the organs that she rules can become sluggish, and we can also have spikes in pneumonia once Venus goes into Cancer because it's the water, it's the fluid not functioning through the kidneys correctly. The pneumonia would be the water on the lungs, and certain organs can start to fill with water. They can become sluggish. Be aware of that. Even though Venus loves Cancer as a whole, a lot of us can actually do really, really well with Venus in Cancer, even with Mercury retrograde. There's an asterisk next to that whenever it comes to the health aspect, because if we're having issues or people around us are having issues again with lungs or kidneys, or we've been trying to do something different in our diet and something kind of spikes us to, go back to the sweets, that can also happen when Venus goes into Cancer because she's a little bit more indulgent there. Just be aware of that. We can do a little bit more emotional eating once Venus goes into Cancer. Okay. Oh, so midway point, we're halfway through the retrograde. On August 1st, Venus is going to square Saturn in the morning, roughly around 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And then by 4 p.m., she's going to go through a square with Neptune. So you can see her here. Saturn in the morning, Neptune a few hours later. But again, Saturn and Neptune are retrograde. So the support is not the same because these people left, something new needs to come through. This is, again, still speaking to layers of the solution. Certain people can be talking about treatments, and there can be certain people that say, I don't want that kind of treatment, or I don't support that kind of treatment. I don't want to try this thing. Other people are going to be hesitant and have to be convinced to try something new because that's the best thing for them, even if they don't want to do it that way. That might take a few days, but that can just kind of be the human effect. Saturn squaring Venus, Neptune squaring Venus. And then for a few days, there's no major transits until we get to August 6th. But what I will say is on the arrival between the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, there can be this need to wrap something up and to complete something so something else can begin. And that again speaks to August 6th, and we see Mars newly in Libra. So he actually arrives right around the 6:30 p.m. time frame. And over the next few days, it's going to be really interesting because, again, we're still in Mercury retrograde. Mars just left Mercury's sign. So we've had these elements of things in the retrograde that once certain planets change signs, they're going to change the dynamic. And it feels like, again, a level of removal in the days before that allows for something new to come through once the planet changes signs. What's interesting is Mars is in Venus's sign. And Venus is in, again, in that exudy, comforting, watery, submerge into the water and just float, mystical vibration of Cancer. And now Mars is in Venus's sign. So part of this feels like the solution of Venus is going to start to play through Mars through different levels of action and reactions. And it's going to get real interesting immediately following Mars's entry into Libra, because there will be challenges, especially to people in positions of authority, that will start to unfold from here. I really do feel like Mars goes straight into getting to work. So again, August 6th, here's Mars newly into Libra, and then hits his opposition to Saturn and Neptune, while also going into this trine from Pluto and Uranus. So you can see a lot of this kind of playing out right here. August 8th and August 9th are going to be real interesting. Uranus will hit the trine to Mars. Mars will hit the opposition to Saturn. Going more into the 9th, it'll hit the opposition to Neptune and the trine to Pluto. This feels like, one, the need to understand something new. Two, dealing with a past fear, past frustration, past power struggle. Three, this is an opposition to people in positions of power. Mars is hosting Saturn and Neptune, but Mars is now in his detriment, being in the sign of Libra. But Venus is very well placed, hitting a conjunction to Jupiter. And this can be real big for the collective these few days. And I want to keep showing why I keep saying the collective and not just one particular element, because we also have this full moon in Aquarius that's developing. This is going to be a very volatile full moon. So the full moon is actually going to go exact in the overnight hours of the 8th into the 9th, depending on, again, your time zone and where you're landing, on the globe. But this is a very powerful, expect the unexpected, shockwave vibration, full moon in Aquarius. Uranus will hit a trine to Mars right before this comes through, Uranus being the modern ruler of Aquarius. Mars is also hitting that opposition to Saturn, being the traditional ruler of Aquarius. There are challenges to people in positions of authority, challenges to what is going on. This is the head first reaction type of challenge to change something, to do something differently, or because of past judgments, this is that level of reaction and response, the new things that have come through. For some people, the things that were connected back in May and June being forced upon the masses. That's another thing. Whatever is going on through here, it is impacting the masses. So this full moon is impacting the collective. And if you think about it, it's a full moon in Aquarius. Aquarius already has to do with the collective, has to do with the masses of people and humanity in that level. Uranus and Saturn are both involved. But in addition to that, Mars and Venus is sign, and Venus is hooking into this conjunction to Jupiter. I have hope that Mars hitting this opposition to Saturn, it's going to be the right person in place to challenge people in positions of authority. But I can also see it being the people in positions of authority and their versions of reality, the versions of truth. And the reason I'm saying the versions of truth, again, Saturn and Neptune is very confounded. The people that are very focused on Saturn have or being activated by Saturn, it's not, they're not focused on it. But if they're being very grabbed and activated by Saturn, they don't believe they're wrong. They don't. And when it comes to the Saturn Neptune conjunction right here, there feels like challenging someone that does not believe that they're wrong. They're very confounded to a belief, but the challenge is almost like a snap back into reality. It's not a quick snap, though. It'll be a slow snap. After this opposition, over the course of August, Saturn and Neptune will actually separate a little bit more. And by September 1st, Saturn will actually go back into Pisces, and then they'll actually be in two different signs again for a little while. So it does feel like we have some little jolts and snaps in reality to show us what does work and what doesn't. But there is something here that definitely impacts the entire collective. And again, we need to expect the unexpected, but I also feel like there's going to be unexpected things that challenge people in positions of authority, but there can also be actions that must be taken because elders can't do it. And that also speaks to Saturn being retrograde in this opposition. It's going to be a hellacious full moon, babies. Hellacious full moon. Okay. Oh, and then of course, on the 10th, Mars is going to hit that trine to Pluto. So I got this at 2:30 a.m. on August 10th. It's not about the hour. It's more along the lines of Mars hitting this trine to Pluto. But once we get to the 10th, Mercury is back where he was back on June 30th, going into July 1st. Back where he was when he entered shadow. So think back to the things that we were starting to do that we put into place all throughout the month of June, because it allowed for something new to kind of set in. And now we're going to be revisiting parts of the new that was coming through in that very first part of July. And some of the things that we wanted to start in July that for one reason or another couldn't happen because, little things popped up. Now we're going to be a little bit more likely to be able to get them done, specifically though, after Mercury turns direct. But that doesn't mean that the timeline of re-strategizing, repurposing wasn't necessary, because it was, to be able to get back to the starting point in the sky. So on August 11th at 2:30 a.m., ironically enough, so I just bumped this one more day, Mercury does turn direct. Whenever it comes to Mars going through that trine with Pluto, it's like having an understanding of the power struggle, of death, of transformation, of the necessary change, and the actions that we're willing to accept to allow change to happen. And then boom, Mercury goes direct. Simultaneously in these few days, this is also when Venus is going to hit her exact conjunction to Jupiter. That's actually more in the midnight hour of August 12th, but it's still in this vibration. And again, Venus is hosting Mars in Libra. Now that Mercury is direct, there feels like a solution. It feels like something that is helping the masses. It helps people. There will be large things that change in wealth. And if you have strong Cancer placements in this mid-range area, you're going to really feel this Venus-Jupiter. And my hope is that it's going to go well, very, very well for a lot of like the Cancer risings, because y'all need it. Okay. Now, for the next few days, there ain't a whole lot going on. I think a lot of people are just going to be kind of getting their bearings about them. Mercury's not going to be doing a whole lot of movement. But what I do think is interesting in these few days is that this is also when Jupiter is going to enter shadow. That's going to happen between August 17th and August 18th. And in the delivery of Jupiter going into shadow, Mercury is going to have its second sextile to Mars. Please note that I said it's the second one. The first one between these two, before the retrograde, was back in June the 5th. Again, The things that we needed to do in June, the commitments that we made, the arrivals into something new, the awareness of the new has led us to certain points. It has led us into what changes we needed to make throughout the Mercury retrograde, and it is leading us to where we're going to start doing new things after the Mercury retrograde, and including eclipse season. And we're getting closer to that big asterisk that I keep referring to. So think back to what was going on around June 5th, the plan of action, the communicating vibration of what Mercury and Gemini would have been proposing to, right, back then were Mars and Leo, the proposal, the distribution of news, the plan of action that was expressed that led to all the changes of June and a multitude of, oh my goodness, I don't know what I did. Dusty is human, Dusty makes mistakes. Okay. All right, moving along. After this little sextile goes on, this isn't a heavy transit, but again, there's certain things that are going to get communicated that will have layers and levels to them moving forward that can be spoken through eclipse season. And in some way, we will be coming back to even the rounds of this new come the spring of 2026. Okay. All right. On the 23rd, so bump this a few more days, we're going to have our first new moon in Virgo. This new moon, notice I said first, number one, is not an eclipse. First and foremost, to be an eclipse, the lunation has to occur within 15 degrees of the node. This is 18 degrees away. In addition to that, this new moon is in a square from Uranus. The actual Sun-Uranus square will go exact on the 24th, but there's still the vibration of the new things that have come through since July 7th has led into this level of new. And again, this is the first new moon in Virgo because we will have two. The second one, the one in September, it's the eclipse. And it's going to be exact on September 21st. It will solidify more of the new that we are going to start to encompass from mid-August to that mid-September timeframe. And I'm not quite done. I'll get back to where I'm at. I just want to continue showing the transits. The new moon is going to be in that square to Uranus. This is a new moon that is not an eclipse. On the next day, we get the actual square between Uranus and the sun. And on the very next day, on the 25th, Mercury is going to leave shadow. And it's the same day Mercury leaves shadow, Venus is going to arrive into Leo. Again, giving us the results or solutions of certain things that we haven't been able to overcome or deal with, but we're going to get into very new vibration by the 23rd, the 24th, and the 25th. Mercury leaves shadow right as we're going into the first Virgo lunation, because we're getting two. The first one is not an eclipse. It's more like a hungover guy thinking, I just woke up outside of this beautiful house that I'm going to buy and rebuild. But he hasn't done all the buying and rebuilding yet. He's just like, epiphany, let's do it this way. Let's try this. Let's connect this way. Yeah, that type of vibration. The new moon in Virgo is going to bring new energy. Mercury leaving shadow is going to allow us to focus on things that we weren't previously able to focus on because we had too much going on and we had to make space or we had to re-strategize through the Mercury retrograde. Mercury rules one half of the eclipse axis. And as soon as we go through this retrograde time frame and he leaves shadow, we go straight into the mercurial lunations. Again, this retrograde sets us up for eclipse season. All the decisions we made in June, specifically whenever we were in Gemini season and everything was in Mercury sign, led to the shifts in regards to the Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde is leading directly into eclipse season this year, guys. Boom, 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 boom. We've been in a chain stair effect of going into a new vibration, shifting into our new normal. But again, because there is so much new, we don't know what we don't know. And we have to adapt and we have to change and we have to alter a couple of things. Be aware of that. There's a lot that speaks to alterations here, a lot that speaks to it, and overcoming power struggles and putting new things into action and allowing new things to be seen and allowing new connections to be made by the end of the Mercury retrograde. If you lose certain people, you lose friends, lose family members, you lose that relationship, that toxic situationship, the guy that wants to DM you at 3 o'clock in the morning every Friday night because he didn't get lucky at the bar, or Tuesday night because he doesn't want to say he's desperate, but in some ways he is, and this is the way that he shows it. Whatever that is, I'm not projecting or anything. Like y'all know who you are. You know, whenever you've been in these situationships, when that stuff happens, there's a reason we suddenly get the ick of, I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. This doesn't feel right anymore. It feels like a chore. It feels frustrating. It feels draining. I don't want to do it anymore. Because we don't want to do certain things anymore, we have to make space. And again, there is a re-strategizing and restructuring, because a lot of us, whenever we start new things, which we did throughout May and June, more so June than May, but still we did new things. We went into new things still carrying baggage, but we didn't know it was baggage. We thought it was going to be helpful. We thought it was a part of the big picture. But then once we got into the new, we realized, oh, you're jealous? This doesn't work anymore? We don't connect the same way? We don't talk in the same way? Huh. Okay. Now, for some people, those cutoffs, that releasing, that purging, that's going to be very, very necessary to, again, allow the new vibration to set forward. And there's a lot of new in this upcoming eclipse season, because it is, in my opinion, the most important one for this axis. And I'll explain that more later when we get into it. But it feels like we're going to be making very hard and difficult decisions very, very quickly to make space for where adaptive energy is going to come later. And for some people, the solutions is going to be reacting to people's negative behavior, reacting to people not serving the best purpose, trying to do things that are counterintuitive to where your greater good is. Now, there's some people you're going to be petty and you're going to feed into the drama. I don't suggest it, but it's going to happen. For other people, once you see that little click, it'll be very clear, like, oh, you're the baggage. You don't continue with me. You aren't going to be a part of the next picture. You and I don't vibrate anymore. That explains a lot. That explains why your quirkiness that used to make me laugh suddenly gets on my damn nerves. That explains it. You don't continue with me. That's okay. But there is going to be active decisions as to how the continuation is going to go for everybody. And it is okay to make space. It is okay to cut ties, because the replacements will come through very, very quickly afterwards. I have a major curiosity around this particular Mercury retrograde. I don't have the same hesitancy that I would normally do. I honestly go into like this weird little giggle every once in a while, just kind of looking at the transits going, It's going to be crazy. It's going to be fun. This is going to be crazy. But I have a hopefulness for what it does and where we land afterwards and what changes we can finally enact afterwards in regards to the next layer and the next round of our new normal. The rest of 2025, we're trying to get a balance of the new normal. Some things stick, some things won't. The things that don't stick will allow for other things to come through that will speak volumes between now and the start of the new year. We are in transitional energy. It is okay to accept things not being the way that they need to. If you have the negative impacts in this Mercury retrograde, you have things that kind of go against what you're trying to do, then be aware that that vibration is going to really test people that are not in alignment, and it is going to have shock waves, especially whenever it comes to the negative sides of the ego. Some people need the negative sides of their ego to get tested and to be, I don't want to say that next word. We'll just stick with tested. Okay. We're not getting political. We're just going to stay focused on the energy. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I hope everyone has a great energy. If you need me, I am doing the discounted rate. Again, like I said, until the end of the month. I will not run it past August 1st, just to be clear. So hit me up with questions, hit me up with concerns, share this video to anyone that needs ideas of how to deal with the Mercury retrograde. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.